Hello and welcome to another Writer's Showcase. It's always a pleasure to have everybody on. Allow me to bring in my guests. Please welcome first, Kishu. Wrong thing.
I am the Dragon Warrior.
Get it? See the giant dragon? Get ready to feel the thunder!
One of my favorite movies.
I very much enjoyed Kung Fu Panda 3, I have to say. Allow me to bring in Tarek.
我が力我が刃我が狂気我が狂気をもて見解せよエクスはあうがせエクスプロージョン
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon. And so we should have a couple more guests filtering through. Carl Sailor is abstained, unfortunately. Neph is kind of tired. Mothmaster will be late. But anyway, we still have our good friend, the ticking time bomb, Johan.
What do you want to do tonight?
The same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world.
Yes, as always, trying to take it over. It's such a beautiful day to be on this showcase.
I'm surprised that you haven't used anything from the Angry Birds movie, because you kind of look like one of the pigs.
Oh, the big
from
giant
Angry
blackbird,
Birds.
yeah. The bomb bird.
Not the bomb bird, just one of the pigs.
Well, convinced you one is still not here.
Mm-hmm.
I am not evil. How dare you? I am not evil until proven otherwise.
Well, what can you do? Life is interesting that way.
Yep.
So how about we'll do this? Kishu, then Johan, then Tarek, then Johan, and then me. And then when Mothmaster comes in, he'll come on.
Okay.
Sure thing.
So this is another story from my Eternia project I'm working on. Short stories that I wrote to sort of give backstories to the characters that come up in the card game. This one's about a character who has a cursed pen, and this is how he gets it: the sacred pen.
Alrighty.
Come in, Yosuke. Was I not supposed to start?
Go for it. No, go for it.
Okay. Come in, Yosuke. The ornate office door opened, and a dark-skinned man in armor walked in. A purple flower circle was put on the left shoulder of his kimono, and a red tengu mask covered his right shoulder, both symbols of his allegiance. Lightly brushing a curled braid behind his ear, Yosuke's brown eyes stared across the room. The large red-skinned being sitting at a massive ornate desk. The most striking features were his piercing yellow eyes and long, arrow-thin nose. A tengu, or dai tengu to be more precise, giving he outranked most others. Have a seat, the dai tengu offered, gesturing to the chair opposite to his desk. His voice was like a cool gravel. It was a simple, almost rigid chair sitting just to the edge of the carpet, a tapestry of carpet no less, that would cover the rest of the floor on the other side, being the main set piece for thick bookcases, fancy window shades, and a chest overflowing with gold coins. More importantly, the chair looked the big leather one the Dai Tengu sat on. The room served as a stark contrast to those who came in, just how different they were compared to Tengu. The Dai Tengu side of the office was lavish with gold and other couple of trinkets of wealth while paying no mind to poor commoners. I'll stand, thanks, Yosuke said. He was a samurai, one of their best, employed for protection and assassination. If he was called to this office, he must do something important that didn't warrant a visit. The Tengu boss's expression did not change, but he relented on the declined offer. You've been distracted late, Yosuke. What is troubling your mind? My mind's calm, he explained. I'm best focused when I'm on the job. I see, came the skeptic response. You are the best we have for protection, but I feel after recent events, you need more motivation. Yosuke's expression soured a bit. Motivation? I've sensed a growing weakness in you, Yosuke. Something debilitating your potential. And we can't have that. Considering these events, I have something for you. Yosuke's aloft expression betrayed interest as he watched the Dai Tengu reach in his desk drawer to pull a single item. His massive hand extended out and unfurled to reveal what he held. Yosuke couldn't help but double take and voice his skepticism. And an artifact, and great source of power for us Tengu, he explained. It is said our ancestors attached to its power to write their feelings into physical form or release unnecessary feelings out. It still sounded too good to be true for Yosuke, who stared at the pen with more scrutiny. It was thick and silver, almost block-shaped than anything else, with a diamond point. The light reflecting off its surface gave an eerie blue glow. What, you want me to write a poem? Yosuke asked. Or draw a picture? Anything, really, said the Dai Tengu. This pen will allow you to expunge your thoughts and feelings as soon as you draw them, giving them form before they disperse into nothing. Yosuke stared at the Dai Tengu with the pen in silence, urging the Dai Tengu to add, trust me, it'll help. After a silent moment of deliberation, he finally walked over to pick the pen up. It was small, fading just out of the grip of his fist. I'll bring it back soon, he said curtly with a bow, and then turned to leave the office. The Tengu were more than just family. They were a pack that always looked out for one of their own, provided they were treated honorably. They took respect seriously, as they always expect some sort of favor or compensation in return. Still, it was no surprise that the Dai Tengu told them, in a case of tasteless humor, don't write a resignation. Yosuke allowed a small smirk as he closed the door, like that was ever going to happen. 1 week prior, Yosuke was on a mission that for all intents and purposes was accomplished, but was personally a failure. From either end of the rural streets, eyes stared at the trio passers-by. Two in front were Tengu men, old and hunched over, but still tall and strong with their black gowns and red masks. Behind them was Yosuke and his bodyguard armor. Thick metal greaves protecting his legs with room for his geta, thick thigh and shoulder guards strapped on with metal polish to a perfect shine, a pair of dark steel gauntlets that covered the fingers to the elbows, and a thin reinforced chainmail hiding just under his white kimono top. It was just another job, walking behind a few Tengu merchants into the city. Usually it was to pay respects and buy drinks at the tavern, but this time they were collecting a debt. Bandits were common in small rural towns and roads leading to them, so those that couldn't defend themselves were under the protection of the Tengu. The bandits tended to be those that offered the Tengu, defended the Tengu in some way too. So it all circles back to them being the cause and solution. It wasn't ideal, but it meant people could live a little longer under their care. A couple of kids ran past Yosuke and the Tengus from the opposite direction, one of them bumping into Yosuke's fine and then tripped. Gasped for her as a worry for the boy's well-being. Not so much from the fall, but the aftermath. Yosuke wasn't much different from the boy, he realized. Young, naive, innocent. He didn't remember much of his childhood before being raised by the Tengus, but he saw enough of in town visits to know it wasn't easy. Not as well off or fed. Are you okay? He asked as he knelt and offered his hand. The boy looked back at him at his hand, wide-eyed before accepting it and helped him up. Wow, you're a real samurai, the boy marveled. Is that your sword too? Can I see it? It's not a toy. Yosuke scolds softly, pivoting his hip away from him. It's okay. I worked with weapons before, and I'm really careful with them. I just want to look. Yosuke, one of the Tengus reminded him, must hurry. As one, the entourage continued on to their destination, with their unintended +1. So your name is Yosuke? The boy asked, trailing behind him. That's cool. Mine's Kota. Nice to meet you. Don't you have someone else to bother? Yosuke asked him. Like those kids you were chasing earlier? Well, they're long gone now, and it's not like I'll get another chance to talk to a cool samurai like you, Yosuke. Well, as long as he didn't get in the way of the job, he could humor the boy, Kota, with some small talk. You think I'm cool? Yeah. I seen you wait at the bar a few times. Me and my friends always wanted to talk to you, but you had a scary, cool look as if you were trying to sleep standing up, arms crossed and everything, like this. Kota imitated the pose with a folded arms, hiding an angry-looking pout for emphasis. That's supposed to mean me? Yosuke asked. Uh-huh. You always have a scowl on your face. No, I don't. Yeah, you do. He looked at the Tengu for help, but they continued looking ahead as they walked. Either they silently agreed with the boy or didn't care regardless. Yosuke felt betrayed either way. So why don't you go inside the bar anyway? It can't be that you're not old enough. You're about as tall as the other adults, and you're a samurai. Well, being a samurai isn't as cracked up to be, Yosuke said. I meant to protect them whenever they get into trouble or party themselves drunk. I'm kind of a chaperone. Or a parent? I wouldn't go that far. I look like a mother to them, do I? Kota's face fell to a frown. I don't really know. I never had a mother. No father either? No. Well, sort of. I'm an apprentice for one of the stores down the street. He took me in when no one else did. Ah, a slave then. Not uncommon, but whoever owned Kota was at least treating him well enough that he could fit in looking like the other kids. I'm sorry for bringing that up, said Yosuke. He mulled over what else to say before finally, I don't know much about my parents either. Huh? But you're a samurai. It's complicated. But the short version is I was a slave too. Got lucky to have the Tengu to raise after me. They said my talent with a sword was unmatched compared to anyone else. So you're really good at killing bad guys, right? That's right. We're here, Yosuke, the Tengu mentor says. They arrive in front of the blacksmith store, according to the sign up top in the anvil out in front. There was a special chimney at the roof meant to dispel the gas out, and an open window for where the store owner would stand and sell his wares. With no fire and no man at the counter, it was clear the store wasn't open yet. You're welcome to join us inside this time, the second Tengu gestured dryly, so they were listening and made a snide joke. Either way, Yosuke shrugged it off. Stay out here, kid. It's official Tengu business now. You didn't see or hear Kota's reaction, but it's just as well he can't go into killer bad guy mode with a kid like him around. Inside the store was well kept at a low barren. A small room to the side with a table and cupboard caught Yosuke's eye, but that was all he could see until they arrived at a forge. Their client, a stout man in a black apron, was just finishing locking something into a small safe when he saw them come in. His face flashed an expression of fear before switching to a jovial one of greeting. My Lord Tengus, to what do I owe the pleasure? The first Tengu mentioned marched closer, the second one looking around the room in critical appraisal. We'll be brief, Mr. Kurumahara. We're just here to check on your well-being and financial situation. But I already gave you my shipment of weapons and armor last week. Yes, and this week is the due date of your protection tax, he explained. Kurumahara scowled and yelled at him. This is ridiculous! I give you my livelihood so you can protect yourselves, and then you go around and expect me to pay you so you can protect me? The Tengu regarded him patiently, staring back through his mask. Though the eyes were just painted on, they felt like they could stare back into one's soul. You know what happens to those who don't accept our offer, Mr. Kurohama. Are you saying you want to retract on our deal? At once, the blacksmith's bravado vanished. I looked away sheepishly. Well, it's just money's a little tight, so what about the safe? Huh? The safe by your feet, the second Tengu merchant pointed for emphasis. It looks to be your savings. Wonderful, said the first. There should be plenty to pay off your tax. Kumohama stared at the safe box for a minute. He probably would serve longer, but the Tengu merchant chided, "Well, wait, Mr. Kurohama." He looked back at the Tengus with anger as he pushed the safe back with his foot. You can't have this money. Mr. Kurohama, I must insist, you can't have it! It's for my boy. We're better to get it back as it is with you taking my stock, and he's going to need all the help he can get in this crazy world. Food, clothes, education. I can't give him that if you keep taking what should be his. Again, the expression of the Tengu merchant was hidden by the mask, but Yosuke swore the eyes were glaring. Before you insist on what is yours and your kin's, remember that we Tengu are taking what is ours. Our money, our time, our services. We're not unreasonable, Mr. Kurohama, the second merchant said. But consider what your actions mean. You bird brains have enough money as it is. It'll come back to you anyway through the grapevine of all your other businesses, just as soon as I use it to support my boy. The Tengu store owner found themselves at an impasse, staring a moment to see the other would relent. The first merchant then sighed, such a waste of good business. He lamented before looking over his shoulder. Yosuke killed the man. Yosuke blinked. Sir, this man has refused payment, but thus refused our protection. He's no longer an asset to us and must be dealt with. That much was true, but still felt excessive. The merchant could be lying for all they knew to get out of paying the tax, or he might really be hurting to support a kid. Regardless, there was never a reason to deny the Tengu's requests, even if it didn't feel right to strike a man down. Did I stutter, Yosuke? I know you heard my order. Understood. It wasn't his place to judge or question him. He was a slave to their will, and his sword was their command. No! Someone cried out, rushing from behind to stop them. He heard the weight and shift of metal, meaning they had a weapon. They were going to strike down one of the merchants. On instinct, Yosuke turned and struck the assailant with his sword drawn before they could attack. It was over in an instant, and the attacker's weapon clanged on the floor. His sword cut through and sliced through the boy's stomach. The last thing Yosuke saw was Kota's face, devoid of life, before blood exploded out of his upper body. He fell back to the floor, dead. What? Yosuke shot from his bed, panting. Okay. Maybe he was feeling a bit out of it since that job the other day. It was stupid, really. It was just one kid out of millions. He was no different from all the others. All the other men that would eventually become criminals. Or become like him. Dead for getting to the Tengu's way. Tengus were a bit too giddy to remind Mr. Kurohama that now the money was useless for a dead boy, and will consider his death an acceptable toll for his transgression. They left to grieve his loss, with a reminder that he'll come back tomorrow and expect pay. Small comfort that was. Yosuke clicked his teeth and rolled out of his futon. No way he was going back to sleep now. It was almost time for morning patrol. That just left him trying to calm himself for the rest of the day. He decided to take the pen the Dai Tengu gave him yesterday. Staying at his desk, he unfurled a blank scroll and pressed the pen's tip against it. He started to write, carefully pressing the tip and light strokes with expert penmanship, only to find no ink was coming out. Yosuke looked it over again. It wasn't a feather pen that needed to be dabbed in ink, was it? It should have its own ink inside. He flicked a finger against the silver base, hearing a low hum echo out. Well, the Dai Tengu said it was an artifact, so maybe it was more of a symbolic gesture and to have it than rather. It was more of a symbolic gesture to have it rather than use it. But then why encourage him to write or draw something? Was there a trick to use it? Yosuke laid his palm out and tapped the pen on it. It was cold to the touch and sharper than what its feeble appearance would suggest. So sharp, he nicked himself with a small amount of blood line now drawn into the needle. Ignoring the flesh wound, he tried writing again, feeling as if he could use blood to etch something. For some reason, his mind wandered to Coda, and he started to draw. He put what he recalled of the boy's features into his sketching. The wide-eyed wonder when they met, the slightly ragged clothes he wore, tips of hair that refused to stay down. He couldn't forget Coda even if he wanted to, because of his nightmare we're living the same day over and over. When he finished drawing, Yosuke admitted he felt a little better. It didn't ease the guilt, but could come a long way in redeeming himself in the eyes of Coda and the people. Only, why did the picture look so bloated and ill-formed? His artistic talent, while not the level of a Tengu scribe, was very neat and clean. He drew the intent of easing himself into tranquility, but there was so much rage in the drawing. Sloppiness from forceful intent. Eyes bloated, hair missing, clothes torn, and drenched in the red ink from his chest. Blood from his own hand. In more ways than one. Murderer. Who's there? Yosuke bolted upward from his seat. It was a small room, and he saw no one else in here. He couldn't hear anyone. Not anymore. But at that moment, he swore someone whispered just up to his ear, a raspy voice of deceit. Yosuke looked back to the drawing and crumbled it. It was now a mockery of Coda, and a reminder of what he did to him. For now, he had to work for the Dai Tengu and others. He'll get better. Just taking a little pause here. Should I keep going? Because I'm about halfway done.
We kind of are a little bit short on time, so if that's
I'll stop here then.
That'd be good. Yeah. We also have a couple more guests that need to come on and read their stuff. First off, I don't have a thing for Mr. Mothmaster yet, but this will work.
Sheer willpower, Nino.
You really should ask for a DuckTales themed intro.
Sheer willpower, my friends. Sheer willpower.
Indeed.
Well, I'm still, actually, I'm drawing my intro, and it's taking a long time to do.
Yeah.
No
We also
shit.
have our good friend.
Yo!
Hey,
Aloha.
Hey,
Oh,
you.
welcome. Anyway.
Greetings, you lot.
So how did you guys like that story so far?
I liked it. It really felt
like
like
the flavor.
Kanku Mafia for me.
I'm not gonna lie. That felt like it was a fan fiction, right? Am I mistaken in that?
I've written fan fiction before, but it's not fan fiction.
Okay, it's not. It's not. My apologies. I was just making sure. That was. Go ahead.
It's probably because I've written fan fiction before, so it kind of blends into it. I've also been told I've written stuff like a light novel, so I'm trying to get into that kind of field of work.
Listen, in my honest opinion, right now, that was edging to the 5, maybe 4 out of 10 on the edge meter, man. I felt like I'm sorry, it felt like it came out of a high schooler's notebook, like for edge.
To be honest, I did start to realize that all the stories I've been writing for this game are been kind of edgy lately.
Okay, so I'm not trying to be mean. I'm trying to be like honest here.
Yeah, I kind of realized that's kind of
Yeah.
Yeah,
weird.
it was indeed a little bit dark, in my opinion, but
I should probably
did like
stop
it.
sharing. I should probably stop sharing these if they're gotta be so dark.
No, you're fine.
You're fine. It's
Good,
just that.
good.
I didn't notice. I honestly read George R. R. Martin and Joe Abercrombie. This is not comparable in terms of darkness.
Well, no, I'm not talking about darkness. I'm talking about just edge, like Shadow the Hedgehog edge. Again, not trying to be disrespectful here.
Yeah,
Shadow
yeah.
the Hedgehog Edge. It felt more like a mafia themed kind of, experience. Like this
Well, it
mercenary
actually
work-
gets kind of worse.
Oh, it
as
gets
story
worse.
goes on.
Right.
What I'm trying to say is, in my personal opinion, I would try to sort of pick up a thesaurus for synonyms or something, because that way you can diversify what you're writing. Like, you could really diversify your word choice. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Like retract for renege, for example.
Well, I do need to kind of proof edit. Honestly, when I wrote this, I didn't proof edit it. I thought
Okay.
my boss would do it, but there was an error of communication because he just uploaded onto the website without even proofreading himself.
All right.
I did like what I heard, but I was putting my groceries, so I only heard part of it.
It was like really detailed though, and that's good actually.
Yeah.
Okay.
The poor kid died.
Yeah.
The poor kid.
Listen, who here honestly can say they have not harmed a child in their story?
Oh,
And then there's me
Brendan-
just
Stab a child.
Yeah.
Well,
I have
Alrighty.
I
Well,
have an entire
Alrighty.
we do have.
But
I do have something.
yeah, I appreciate the criticism, Ted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My
that's-
pleasure. Yeah. I believe it is now. Okay, so now because of the inclusion, we're just gonna keep going clockwise, and we might skip me today, but Tarek, it is your turn. If you could keep it to about 15 minutes, so as to allow the other guests at least 15 minutes each, that'd be great.
Okay.
Well,
I
Sorry I took so long, by the way.
No, it's fine. No, it's totally fine. It's totally fine.
Okay.
I'm just pressed. I'm just pressed because Smudcast, Maggie May Fish, lots of fun
you,
stuff.
pardon
you
me.
masochistic fuck.
Pardon me. Pardon me. This,
Okay, let me Valerian, let me just get on to this then.
No. I need to ask this question first. I'm sorry. I need to ask this question first. What is the cutoff time?
The cutoff time is in an hour and 15 minutes.
Okay, because
very
I'm
latest.
going to be.
Like 3:03.
Yes.
3:03.
Okay, all right. Let me go then. Let me just get this over with.
Wait. If Valerian needs to go AFK, we should probably have him read, and then you, then Johan, and then Mothmaster.
I'm going to go AFK-ish in a quarter hour, but I don't know when I'll be back. I mean, I'll be around, but
Go, Valerian.
yeah.
If you gotta go AFK, you go first.
Yeah, you
Do
can
it.
go first.
sorry about that.
Just do
No,
it.
you're fine. You're fine. Just-
Okay, this will be. No, I don't want this one. That one. Sorry, and I won't share a screen because it will make it take too long. And pardon me, I need to get some water. There. Sorry about that.
Where's?
Margaret had difficulty restraining her. Okay, this is back to Lady Margaret. She's just ordered a sword from the armorer, because she wants to get a sword. Margaret had difficulty restraining her impatience in waiting for the sword to be forged, but knew it would take time. The more so as it was a difficult task and would require him, meaning the armorer, and his apprentices to take time away from the other projects. And she wanted the very best quality. Finally, after a month, she made her way back to the smithy and asked if he had finished. Not yet, my lady. It will be another month. So Margaret had to be patient for a while longer, although she had long since finished embroidering the tapestry of Chandra and Ezero. Okay, Chandra is the civilizing deity, and Ezero is like an ancient like the first blacksmith. And anyway, she was kept busy as her father was showing her how to do accounts in preparation for ruling. It was hard. Margaret, unlike her sister, had never been very good with figures. Finally, at the end of a month, she made her way once more to the smithy. In case the sword was ready, she brought a large crow-shaped backpack with her, remembering at the last minute to put her tapestry in it. She had already packed some food, since her pretext for the outing was that she wished to go on a picnic. She had to remind herself not to run to the smithy and went a roundabout sort of way, making sure to stop in the southern garden and eat a picnic luncheon. It seemed to take ages for her to reach the smithy. The smith was sweeping up the ashes in the hearth. Seeing Margaret, he stopped and bowed. "Is my sword ready, Marvier?" "Yes, my lady." The smith pointed to the wall. Margaret began to enter the smithy to pick up her sword, but Marvier held up a hand. "I am sorry, my lady, but you may not enter." Margaret sighed. "Oh, yes, I know. It is forbidden. I'm not sure why, since you're not actually forging anything right now. But anyway, here's your tapestry." As she had promised, it was partially sewn with a golden thread. She only had a very limited supply. And depicted Chandra, an anvil in one hand and a torch in another, descending from heaven to the astonished Ezero. As she handed it to Marvier, he looked pleased and gave a rare smile. Then he took the sword down from the wall and presented it to Margaret in a fine glyptodont shell scabbard shaped like a crow's beak, which had been made at Margaret's request by the resident tanner Garrod, under the impression that she was going to give it to Barama. Margaret took the sword out of the sheath and looked at it. "It's beautiful. I love the way you managed to make it firm like the Mindarite sword, flexible like the Tyranian sword, and long like the Sandaranian. And the way you etched the crow rescuing the Funuru, that's a cute, fluffy animal, so it looks both kind and fierce. My lady graces me with great grace. May I?" "Oh, yes, of course. I'll let you get back to what you were doing before I came. They'll be looking for me anyway, if I stay much longer. You'd think I'm old enough to go around by myself, but..." Half a second. She bowed her head slightly. There was no need to curtsy to a mere smith, and put the sword in its sheath and the scabbard in her bag, and dashed off. Then she remembered that at her age she couldn't run anymore and slowed to a dignified walk. The next step would be finding a way to practice with her sword without her elders interfering. Margaret would have liked to train for warfare with Barama, but there was no way of arranging that while still keeping her training a secret. Even Barama was only permitted to squire, and was himself just beginning to receive serious training in warfare. Margaret, unlike Barama, was not considered the proper material for a warrior. It is true that in a distant, half-legendary time, some noble women had fought in battle, but the practice was now regarded as barbaric. Nonetheless, she managed to persuade or to bribe the second assistant master at arms, Wuniel, to give her secret lessons by slipping him wine money. In the course of time, Margaret was to equal or possibly even surpass Barama, but that was still in the future. For now, Margaret was still a somewhat frightened teenage girl being pursued by an emperor with letters that, although a little less threatening, were nonetheless worrisome. The emperor wasn't the only one whose communications were a matter of concern. Margaret and her parents also had to deal with Burunu's importuning them with requests for Margaret's hand in marriage, which were the harder to ignore as he hinted that he might be able to stave off the emperor's advances. And as Mpu'u, that's the emperor's son, has suggested this as a possible way out. Can he protect me from the emperor, though? wondered Margaret. And would he if he could? I do not know, replied Palomar with a sigh. I doubt it. We shall have to do something about your suitors. It will only get worse, I fear. Let me see. I'm wondering if I should start the next section or if I should stop here. Okay, what do you think? Stop here or go on for a little bit longer?
You have 4 more minutes.
Okay, maybe let me finish a few more paragraphs. Anxiety about Margaret's future was beginning to cast a pall over the whole castle. Indeed, one reason for Margaret's increased interest in swords was her greater awareness of her own vulnerability. This vulnerability, and the concomitant vulnerability of the estate, was very much on her parents' mind as well, and even Audrey was worried about it. That's her sister. The trouble with a female heir was that the estate risked falling into alien and possibly hostile hands. Palomar was determined to keep Ihalimu out of the clutches of Burunu, if he could, especially since that would entail Margaret, and Audrey as well, also falling into said clutches, and thence, I fear, into the even less salubrious clutches of Equeque, the emperor, he told his wife. We are experiencing a reprieve of sorts for now, but it cannot last forever. So by Margaret's 15th birthday, the Count had already been at work for some time at preparing a match with the son of the Duke of Darzaz. In spite of the Duke's prudent policies, Darzaz was not very fashionable at court, being rather too independent for palace tastes. But the plan was the best bet for maintaining some degree of autonomy, and, Pilar hoped, preventing unpleasant things from happening to his daughters. There was an urgent need to get Margaret, in particular, engaged, and Darzaz seemed the least bad option. What will you tell Burunu? Asked the Countess. Oh, I'll have to come up with something, said Palomar with a nod, the equivalent of a shrug and a helpless gesture. We'll tell him that we are unworthy, that Margaret is not a good match, that the engagement is already agreed to, blah, blah, blah. Although I don't think this will end well, but what can one do? I fear we shall offend the governor. The Count shrugged again. We've already offended the Emperor. What can the governor do that's worse? Will Darzaz be willing or able to defend her? I do not know. Probably up to a point. At least it's farther away from court. Why not send her to Palismu? Suggested Markaruna. I have kin there. The risks of getting intercepted on the way are too great, replied the Count. So Darzaz it was. And that's a good stopping place, I think.
Nice.
Pardon all the weird names and words and stuff.
You're fine.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, it was really interesting that you stopped enough to explain the little technical terms. I like that touch.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I'm pretty sure it's not part of the story itself.
Yeah. I had to explain some things because if you've read the rest of it, you'll know. But if you're just listening now, you might not know what I'm talking about, who these characters are and whatnot.
Sometimes story in medium and race is a good marketing tool.
Yeah.
Agreed. Okay.
Sounds good. I liked it.
Yep.
Thank you. Not as funny as last time, but hey.
Well, that's only because you can hardly beat that.
We'll see.
Next time, my jokes will be incredible.
Mhm. Indeed. I believe it is our good friend. I believe it is Tark's turn.
Yep.
Or and then Johan, and then Mothmaster, and I'll start finding a bit in my books where I talk about a villain for 15 minutes.
All right.
15 minutes film.
So, quick recap from last time. Aviana got a letter to deliver to the Mages College. She was paid for it in advance, and now she can afford to have her own room at the inn for once. So it's a roof without holes, and that's leads where we are today. Aviana climbed up the stairs in the back of the tavern to the second floor, where 4 wooden doors lay before her. She took a look at the key that the bartender gave her and matched the number to the door and entered the room. It was a quaint room with dark floorboards and walls and warped windows similar to the ones downstairs. Looking out the window, she could barely make out the sight of the docks through the darkness. In the center of the room was a bed that had a stained brown comforter that looked like it had been washed multiple times in an attempt to get the stains out, but it never succeeded. In front of the bed sat a small wooden chest, and tucked away in the corner of the room was a wooden bathing tub. Aviana felt a smile curl on her face as she climbed into the bed. She could feel the wool in the mattress shift as she pressed her body into it. She started to sink into the bed as she lied, and it only cut on it and causing her to giggle happily. It may have just been an average dirty tavern bed, but at the moment it was the most comfortable thing she had ever laid on. Just as she was getting settled into the bed, she heard a soft knock on the door, snapping her back to reality. Who is it? She asked cautiously. I have the water for your bath, a soft voice said from behind the wooden door. Aviana slowly got up from the bed and opened the door slowly and carefully kept her hand on the knob. Outside the door was the same tavern maiden who had served her and Merrick earlier, holding 2 large buckets of steaming water in her. 2 large buckets of steaming water, her arms trembling from the weight. Aviana stepped aside, allowing her to enter. The maiden walked into the room and put both buckets down, catching her breath. After a moment, she straightened her back and picked up one of the buckets and poured it into the bath, filling it halfway. She then picked up the other and poured it. Once it was empty, the steam began to pour over the bath's rim. The maiden reached into her apron pocket and pulled out a vial with purple liquid and popped the cork off the top. The delightfully sweet smell of lavender began to fill the room as the maiden poured the contents of the vial into the tub, causing a film to gently spread over the water's surface. There are wool cloths in the chest to scrub yourself and to dry off with, the maiden said, bowing her head politely before walking out the door and closing it behind her. Aviana walked over to the chest and pulled out several washcloths, as well as a larger one to dry off with, and threw them near the tub. Then she began to undress. Aviana's cloak hung on a hook attached to the door, while her other clothes laid in a pile on the floor next to the bed. The hot bath water felt soothing against her pale skin as she reclined into the tub, the smell of lavender surrounding her. Between the heated water and steam, she felt her body loosen as she sunk deeper into the tub. She took one of the washcloths off the floor and scrubbed her body, chipping away at the built-up dirt on her skin, the water turning muddy as weeks of dirt left it. She was about to begin scrubbing her chest when she noticed just how much her ribs were jutting out of her torso, almost fully visible. She then took a look at her legs and arms, all of which were malnourished and thin, with the bones and muscles just as visible as her ribs. Before the disgusting sight could take hold, she plunged her head into the water to drive the image away. She could feel her long black hair spreading out the longer she spent underwater. After a few moments, she raised her head up and panted for breath, her hair now sticking to her back. Taking the cloth, she put it to her face and began to scrub away at the dirt on her cheeks and behind her ears. Once that was done, she hung the rag on the side of the tub and took a deep breath and plunged her head back into the water to rinse off, before quickly surfacing again. When she raised her head, she moved her bangs over her forehead, moving them from her eyes. She looked into the stilling waters as they reflected her face. The mud and dirt were gone, but all that remained was her gaunt-looking, malnourished face that seemed to taunt her. The reflection's purple eyes were without spark and lifeless, and her hair, despite being wet, still looked dirty and disheveled. Aviana let out a cry of frustration and slapped the water, causing the image to ripple and disappear. After she was clean, Aviana allowed herself the privilege to stay in the bath a little while longer, making sure to avoid looking into the water's surface again. She had to enjoy this luxury while she could. since she surely wouldn't be able to afford it again for some time. After a while of enjoying the heated water, she slowly began to stand up. The moment she left the water, she felt her body go rigid as the cool air began to assault her. She nearly fell out of the tub when she leaned down to grab a dry wool cloth from the floor. She wrapped the cloth quickly around her body and stepped out of the bath, her feet leaving wet track marks as she walked from the bath to the chest and reached into it. She grabbed out a second cloth and wrapped that one around her dripping wet hair. Her body shook and shivered as she dried off. Despite the tavern's room, the cool air did little. Sorry. Despite the tavern, the room's cool air did little to ease her discomfort. At least it's not as bad as bathing outside this time of year, Aviana thought to herself. She had only done it once, and it was a mistake she intended not to repeat again. Once her body was significantly dry, she began to redress. Aviana's body did not so gracefully fall onto the bed so much as it collapsed like a lead weight. The mattress felt so comfortable, as though she was laying on a cloud, though it did make her realize just how sore her body was, no doubt due to her regular sleeping condition and all the exercise she had gotten during the day with only a bowl of stew and bread for nourishment. The act of climbing into the bed and properly pulling the covers over her was almost unthinkable, yet she forced herself to do it. As she pulled the blankets up to her neck, she let out a sigh of relief as the thick brown comforter protected her from the biting cold. It wasn't long before her eyes began to close with the promise of sleep lingering in her immediate future. As a sleep that hopefully wouldn't be interrupted by the nibbling of rats, howling winds, falling snow, or anything else that might disturb her. Finally, her eyes gave way and gently closed, the warmth from the thick yet cozy wool blanket keeping her in a blissful state of ease. In this moment, for her, there was nothing but a warm bed, a safe room, and the irresistible siren's call of a good night's rest. How am I doing on time?
Let's see.
Done?
Oh, you have 7 minutes.
Oh, okay, so I'm still good. Okay, good. Yeah. Just tell me when, okay?
Okay.
When Aviana's eyes next opened her eyes, she did so slowly as she noticed the light was spilling into the room from the outside. She attempted to raise her head only for her body to ache with each attempt to move. Groaning, she forced herself to sit up, her back aching in pain. Neither her brain nor body wanted to leave the bed as they wished to be lost in the comfort of its embrace. She slowly forced herself out of bed, stretching her arms and legs, trying to loosen her contracted muscles, and despite the dull pain in her legs, walked towards the window. Though the windows were warped, she could see dock workers and sailors down below, carrying crates out of a large wooden ship. The sky was bright blue without a cloud in sight, and with the sun positioned to be mid-morning. It surprised her that she had slept so long. On any average day, she would have been up at first light trying to find work for the day. Aviana put a finger to the glass and felt an icy chill against it. She pulled away from the glass and walked over to her boots and pulled them onto her feet. She then grabbed her cloak from the hook, clinging sounds coming from the pockets as Dharma smacked against one another. She placed the cloak around her neck and secured it, then reached into her pocket and pulled out the letter, making sure it was still there. Mikhail, she said quietly to herself, somewhat relieved she remembered the name, before placing the letter back into her pocket. She took one last look around the room, making sure she didn't leave anything behind. She didn't see anything except for the sight of the tub from the night before, the remaining water having frosted over during the night. Satisfied, she opened the door and walked out of the room. She walked down the stairs and placed the room key on the empty bar counter before sitting at a table, her stomach growling. The tavern was emptier than it was the night before. Instead of several groups of rowdy sailors, there were only 3, and unlike the ones last night, these sailors looked sick, with their faces green and one with his head on the table groaning. "What can I get for you?" a woman's voice asked. When Aviana turned her head, she saw a blonde-haired tavern maiden standing in front of the table. She was shorter than the one from the night before, and was a bit rounder both in the torso and face. She looked kind of pretty, but was overall unremarkable, mostly due to her gray dress and brown apron. "How much is breakfast?" Aviana asked. "Breakfast is 3 dama today, and we are serving eggs with sausage," the woman said astutely. Aviana grimaced at the word eggs, but when she heard sausage, she perked back up. I'll have that and some hot cider as well, she replied politely. She took out 3 dharma out of her pocket and handed them to the tavern maiden. The maiden took the dharma and walked away. Aviana stretched her arms and reclined in her seat when she noticed another group of people sitting in the corner of the tavern. There were 3 figures in black robes sitting around the table speaking to one another. Speaking to one another quietly. All of them turned in a way that Aviana could not see their faces. What are members of the Black Scholars doing here? Aviana mused as she pretended to look up at the ceiling, hoping to hear what they were talking about. Was your journey to Melrin fruitful? A deep male voice asked. I was turned away when I got there. The entire city's been blocked off by the Mages College. They even have a group of guardians patrolling the area. I'm surprised they would bother. From what I saw, the entire town was reduced to nothing but rubble, a gruff male voice replied. And to think, that could have been our fate if the guardians hadn't arrived when they did, the deep male voice said. I'm surprised there were mages there at all. Digging through rubble seems like a waste of their time, a female voice stated. That's the thing. There weren't just mages there. When I was lodging at one of the inns near Melrin, I overheard. People have seen members of the Alchemist Union, the Mining Guild, the Mason Guild, even Master Blacksmith Terrigan Ferris. I even heard that Tyrion's newest chosen, Kero Malagoth, is there. The gruff voice said, almost starting to sound excited. That's quite a gathering. Any idea as to what they were doing there? The deep male voice asked. No, everyone I've asked is either ignorant or keeping silent. Shame, really. The Grand Scholar might have promoted me if I was able to give him that kind of information, the gruff voice said with a laugh. After that, the conversation shifted to more mundane matters such as city economics, the Order's politics, and other things that did not interest Aviana. When she lowered her head to look at the table, she saw that her food had been delivered on a wooden plate. She was so engrossed with the conversation that she didn't even notice. You want me to stop there?
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Okay.
Very good descriptors.
Yeah.
Indeed, it was lovely.
Really descriptive. Loved it.
Done. You cut me off before I could get to what the food tasted like. You know I'm good at that.
Maybe that's a good reason because I haven't eaten today.
Oh no!
Yeah, the descriptions are really good. Also, like the voice. I like the way you do Aviana's voice too. So I like that part of it. There are a couple of small things, like you've got a laid somewhere for when you mean lay, like past tense of lie somewhere.
Probably. I was unsure of the grammar, so I just kind of winged it, and I just said, to hell with it.
And then there's that description of where she was bathing and felt kind of, I think, disgusted with her dysphoria.
No, she's not. She just has major body issues because right now she's very obviously underfed, so she feels like she looks like a monster.
Oh, that's sad.
Which is logical.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, but well, at least I don't have to edit this weekend. I can just write more.
Yeah. Cool.
All right. Ugh.
I believe it is Johann's turn.
Yeah. Well, luckily my chapter is a little bit tiny, so I think I can make it in 50 minutes. So that's good. A little short reminder. It's chapter 4 of the nine in total that I am writing right now. And you guys are going to be following again Jonas, so that's going to be fun. Anyway, part 4, the storm in the night. Thunder sounds are heard in the raining night. With a flash of light, Jonas wakes up once again. He stands up and looks at his pocket watch, seeing only 20 minutes have been passed by in the night. Tired and unable to sleep, he walks to his desk and lights the candle on it. He grabs some of the pale leftover paper and some ink and a quiver. He sits down at the desk and starts writing while looking at the window. Light flashes, followed by a thunderous sound. My dear beloved Annabelle, I'm writing this a letter for you. I hope you are doing well. After all, I miss you. We visit Belden today, a lovely and prosperous city with lots of opportunities. Nights like these make me wonder if this was the right thing to do after all. After all, I really miss you. And your face, and those of our kids. I still remember back in the day how cheerful they always were when I got home from work. And don't forget the smell of the fine meat you always prepared when I came home. It's such a shame I can't share my feelings with you. These long distances between us really make me doubt myself time to time. It feels like there is a wall between us, and I can't climb over it. As long as we are separated, I truly hope you will take good care of them and the house. Once I come back, I promise you I will buy you a fine dress. You always wanted to buy one. After all, you are my angel, and I never forget that. As long as I live, I only accepted this mission to give you and our children a good future, and that we can both be proud of. Sincerely yours, Jonas Yakunovich. As Jonas finally finished his letter to his wife, the front door of the tavern opened. He heard a familiar voice coming from it. He packs up his stuff and moves down the stairs, and sees Sarah sitting at one of the tables. She waves her hand at Jonas and takes a seat near her. So, what are you doing up so late? Sarah asked. I could not sleep thanks to the weather. Where have you been? Normally, conversations talking about cities doesn't take so long. Jonas replied, while ordering some drink. Sarah rolls her finger in her long blonde hair and starts to blush. Well, you could say I had the time of my life. Sir Julius showed me all there is in Kundera, and why it's such a lovely country to live in. Could you even believe it? He even asked me out for dinner, and it was the best dinner I had in a long time. The bartender brings Jonas his drink, and he pays him with a single golden coin. Keep the change. The bartender thanks him for his generosity and moves to the next table. You could at least informed us. We waited here a long time for you to come back. But glad you're safe and sound. So tell me all about this, Kundera. After all, it's not like this storm is gonna go away very soon. Jonas said, while starting to take a sip out of his drink. Sarah's eyes wide open, full of joy. Really? You mean it? You want to hear all of it? Oh, this is gonna be so lovely! Finally, someone who wants to hear a full story. Normally, people always try to avoid such conversations with me. Jonas shrinks his shoulders, then takes a big jug out of his drink, half emptying it in one go. Well, I just don't mind listening to a long conversation. After all, I need to make my own notes for comparison for this expedition. So if it makes your day, I guess it's a good thing. But please, don't go too far off topic, all right? Since I want to be able to sleep afterwards. Jonas starts to lay down paper on the table and a quill and ink. Sarah smiles. All right, where should I begin? Oh yeah, the beginning, of course. Oh, you should have seen the charms on Sir Julius. With only the looks in his eyes, I felt like I was in a trance. Don't get me even started on his romantic voice. Jonas slams his drink on the table, spilling some of it. Please, Sarah, focus. I don't want to be all night listening to about your romantic date. Focus on what is important. Let's start with the trade routes, for example. She looked startled. Oh, sorry. I had my head in the clouds. She pulled out a map out of her backpack that was given to her by Sir Julius. She shows Jonas the regions of Gandera and the surroundings. Shortly after, she starts pointing out the trade routes. Well, as you can see, there are trade routes. Their trade routes are well routed. Some even go as far as the Elven and Dwarven cities. Jonas looks closely to the map and its details. So, what did Sir Julius tell you about these trade routes? Anything interesting for the Magarian government? Would likely to trade? Sarah nodded. Yes, apparently they sell glass and jewelry. Jewelry. Ah! Stupid word. A lot of it. And I think we can always use such kinds of trades. After all, we need such stuff for our research station. Jonas starts to think deeply for a moment. Sarah starts putting some more papers on the table and about exports and imports of Kundera. You see, if we are able to make a trade route with them, they can provide us with the resources that are hard for us to get, and so it would benefit us both when we lend our inventions to flourish their lands. Jonas nodded. I think you're right about this one, Sarah. Sarah looks outside through the window and sees the skies and sees the skies to be clearing, and the stars start to shine again. She looks at she looks at them and looks amazed by them. Look, Jonas, the stars are in the sky after all. Jonas takes a look outside the window himself. Yeah, it looks like the thunderstorm is finally submitted. I guess this is the time to get a well-earned sleep. When Jonas is about to move out of his chair, Sarah grabs him by his clothing. Wait, can you wait, Jonas? Can I please tell you about the constellations of the stars and why I love them so much? Jonas sits back in his chair, looking at the stars once more. Sure, go ahead, Sarah. After all, I'm interesting. Why you love them so much? Sarah smiles, and joy is shown on her face, and points towards the stars in the window. You see those 4 stars over there in the skies? The ones that shine the most? Those represent the sun. The one on the left of it is the crab, and the one on the right is a snake. It's so lovely to see them in the sky. If I'm correct, since the sun is showing, it means that a couple of days is gonna be sunny. While the crab says that the journey ahead will be hard and full of challenges. Jonas points towards the snake. So what about the snake then, Sarah? Sarah looks at the constellation. Well, normally it means death or sorrow, but it could also mean a new life or both sometimes. Jonas finally empties his glass. So, should we be worried about our expedition, or do you think that we will be fine? Sarah stands up from her chair and hugs Jonas around the neck. You worry too much. Well, I'm gonna get some shut eye. I'll see you tomorrow, and don't worry about the constellations. I'm sure everything is gonna be fine in the end. Well, Sarah leaves to go to the bartender to hire a room. Jonas is left with a bit confused by what just happened. After packing up his things, he stands up and goes to his room. He starts staring at the window again while lying down on his bed, thinking about events that could happen. After some time, his eyes feel heavy and close, and he falls asleep on his bed with his thoughts in mind. The end.
Very nice.
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 I like the
Thank you.
character interaction in particular. That's something that I've always liked about your writing.
Yeah, it was really hard to write, I'll tell you that.
Yes, entertaining dialogue.
It's good.
Alrighty. Well, I believe that is our friend Mothmaster's turn.
Alright, so I made a poll thingy about which story I should read, but I think the third one is a little bit too graphic, so I'm just doing
Define graphic. Define graphic.
like, I don't know how to. Well,
NSFW for violence or sex. It's one or the other.
violence.
Oh, we don't care. Go for
No.
it.
Yeah.
We don't
Violence?
care. Go for it.
Chop their heads off.
There aren't any
Alright,
raccoons, are there?
You're talking
What?
to a George R. R. Martin and Joe Abercrombie fan. Whatever violence that you come up with is baby violence, just by virtue of rule of contrast.
Just so long as there are
Alright.
no raccoons.
Yeah.
Just a second. Let me see here. Alright, I see here. Alright, it cannot be. The dark sky was filled with an intense, pure white flare. The crackling of fire and the foul scent of ancient wood being turned to ash was all around them. The dragon snarled in rage and pain as it fell into the chasm depths. One of its armored legs making a loud snap that echoed throughout the stone halls. It struggled and tried to roll over. You cannot be! Drog, Othir, step back, hold on. Alright, Drog, Othir stepped back, but his horned helm disguised his fear. The moon grew wings and bright white stars underneath it. It rose into the air and let out a feral roar that sounded unlike any moth's battle cry. In fact, it sounded more like a dragon or even a giant. The winged moon lunged at the king, and he raised his arms to block its attack, but it was too fast for him. A clawed hand grabbed his throat tightly, threatening to cut off his head with a clench of its fist, and the figure shoved him into the hot ground. It made sure to drag his body to his helm could squeeze against his shoulders, and the thing ended its brief cruelty by swinging him into the cavern. Drog Othir spat up blood as he collapsed against the floor, and he staggered up to his feet, only to see an arrow shoot into his shoulder and pinning him against the wall. He let out a low, coughing chuckle at the moon. I didn't think you had it in you. A titan slowly pushed its body against his abdomen and began to crush his spiracles. The Blood King's eyes had widened and his hands tried to push the titan away from him. And no, wait, please. Hold your... He tried to breathe. Hold... His claws forced themselves into the titan's fur to hopefully make it reel back, but it kept crushing him. Everything began to dim. I'm trying to calm down a little bit. And the heat of the fire had grown hotter. Hold your cruelty. He managed to say as the titan slowly leaned away from him. Mercy, mercy. Trog Othir breathed mercy. His request was stopped by a punch across the face, causing him to nearly keel over. His chest fur was pulled hard again, and another blow to the head was given. Did this hand not care about iron? For all he knew, it may have even dented his helm. Over and over, he was shoved against the wall and viciously beaten against, well, sorry, by the merciless titan. He was trembling. Its thumbs pressed against his throat and forced his head back. Wait. Did you... Trog Othir coughed. Do you understand what you're doing? Do you know the atrocities these moths had sent upon us? The lies they spoke? The titan was deaf, it seemed, as began to press further. You don't understand. The Blood King touched its face in hopes of it recognizing his fear of death. Listen to me, please. A titan paused for a bit, as if it was just now knowing what he was saying. The Blood King tried to look for a single hint that it was the same species as him, a sign that it was a moth and not a monster. Even a death was at least kind enough to strike quickly. Dragothir wanted to see if it was even an insect like him, to see that it was not some otherworldly horror or the spawn of Destructus himself. But within those bright eyes he saw that there wasn't nothing of one, but all of those possibilities. Its thumbs pressed deeper into his throat, and his head began to tilt back even further, and until the raging fires muffled to snap and sliding of lifeless legs against calming down a little bit more against the ash covered floor. The Titan did not release the corpse immediately. No, it made sure that he was dead, as it twisted his body from the wall and slung him into the ancient fire, a sacrifice made to a death, who watched at the bent knee in reverence of his superior. Done. Sorry.
Nice.
I got nervous.
Don't you worry.
Yeah.
That was filth, and now I feel dirty because that was very violent for my 4 virgin ears.
Yeah. I was worried. I told you it was violent.
I was kidding. Calm down.
Our souls are annihilated now.
Dude, this
Yeah.
is Redwall style violence, and Redwall style violence is like totally acceptable for any kid. So no worries, dude.
Yeah.
Like this is like if we're not to be offensive, but looking at the ratings of violence, this is like PG to PG. This is PG.
This is Don Bluth violence. This is like Don Bluth.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. That's the reason why I made the meme and artwork. I was like, X gonna give it to you, all that stuff, because the Titan just kicked. He just kicked the Blood King's butt. Seriously, it was funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you have not read Joe Abercrombie or George R. R. Martin, I am assuming, or even Brandon Sanderson, right?
They sound familiar, but that is it, honestly.
Game of Thrones.
Oh, there we go.
Yep.
There are brutal descriptions of blood, limb crushing, limb severing, and a bunch of other lurid descriptions of violence throughout those books. This is
well, to be honest, I tried to like tone it down a little bit, but
you're
fine to go. Like, if you've read the Redwall series, that'll probably be a good estimator of like what violence. It's like Redwall, the series, the book series has heads it has heads cut off but it's perfectly acceptable for children because it's animals. So
they're speciesist. That's just so speciesist.
Yeah, well, it's just the fact that
Did they not read Watership Down?
Oh
yeah, Watership Down's far
I've read that
more
actually.
violent.
That's a great book, but the film.
I've read it and I've watched it.
The movie's disturbing. The movie's really, really disturbing.
Yeah, the book's not quite so violent because it's not so focused on action.
Yeah.
Honestly, Redwall's kind of amazing how it makes sort of modern day kind of abbey and very small exploration area. I feel epic to a bunch of woodland creatures.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Why? Because it's a good book, or because it's disturbing?
Well, I honestly thought it was more in tune with nature, I guess, because animals tend to like get into really bloody conflicts, but they also try to like humanize them by wearing clothes and wear armor and stuff, and be all about trying to protect each other.
Because it's fear. Yeah, that you're not wrong. There's some disturbing imagery in that movie.
Yeah, trust me.
I've blunked out most of the film, but the books are great though. The book is great.
I do like the little short animation talking about how rabbits came to be. Like they used to be like all these
At the beginning,
kind of great animals, but then they got blasted by God, who was like, "Hey, why don't you come out here? I want to give you something." No, thanks, God. I just want to hide. You can just push my butt if you want to. Okay, I'll touch your butt.
the film. That's at the beginning of the film. That's deceptive. The deceptive beginning of the film is that myth about Frith and this nice sunny image and blah blah blah. And then you get these.
Yeah.
Honestly,
rabbits.
if it was just a short animation film on that'd be fine on its own. Like it had nothing to do with Redwall. It had nothing to do with Watership Down. I mean, other than like showing how Bunny's got the short end of the stick because of one jackass ancestor.
So
so a movie that I had seen, it was called Bloodied, and
Feladay
I got like nauseous at that, and I have a high tolerance of that stuff. Like God.
Yeah, Feladay's just like the little I've seen of Feladay is freaking disturbing.
Ooh, yeah.
Disturbing?
It's good, but no. I ain't watching that again.
I already got the fucking creeps in my stomach when I was watching Hulk.
Yeah. Well, I believe it is my turn. So, the thing that I got for when I asked the chat what they would like me to do, let me find it. So, well, it's actually just from Becca. She suggested something with a bad guy, and then when I asked for specifics, the thing that I got was a confrontation with a hero or something. So, so the thing that I'm going to do is I'm actually going to do a book from Tempest, a section from Tempest of Shadow, available on Amazon for anybody who wants to read it. And this is a confrontation between a... Oh dear, there's a book. Oh dear. Let me find it. Here we go. Let me share my screen so that y'all can see what I'm talking about. So then you can find it once the stream is over. Hopefully, I want to get some conversation going in the Discord about the books, just so we can can have things going. A little bit of context. Basically, the villains are a villain named Ja'ana, who I actually read in an earlier stream, is attacking this rather isolated city. It's not a village; it's a city. So kind of breaking the mold there. So, and now we're following the villagers, the city people, You all influence the stream. Yeah. So this is going to be short. I'll try to keep it short. I made sure to pick a very short section of a chapter, but this is kind of a character named Kotara Abors who kind of imagine Ronda Rousey, but slightly taller. That's kind of how I picture this character. Okay. Kotara had never been in a fight for her life before today. Now she was covered in blood from fighting down in the streets of the city. How would the bastards get into the city? Anyway, a man came at her with a sword, but she knocked the weapon aside with her warhammer. She growled and slammed her lion-marked warhammer into her attacker's head, crushing it like a ripe melon. He fell to the ground, dead as last week's trash. Snarling, Kotara hefted her hammer and continued forward. First squad, she yelled. Raise your hammer aloft. Gather on me. We need to get these flaming bastards out of our city. They gathered around her, raising their swords and axes to the ready. They ran at a corner of a building only to see a group of invaders led by a man in a black coat. Without thinking, she ran at the man. Despite the fact that he held no weapon, the man seemed contemptuous. Just as she charged forward, he waved his hand, and the men around her burst into flames. The hammer glowed red in her hand as she rushed the Sorov. He seemed shocked. How? He only had time to get that one word out before her hammer struck his chest. Bones shattered underneath the force of her blow, the attack flinging him backward. The enemy squad looked stunned, then rushed her. There were too many of them. Kotara knew they would overwhelm her eventually, but she hefted her hammer nonetheless. Come on, you bastards! She challenged. Lightning flashed down from the sky, killing the enemy squad in less than a second. Kotara flung up her arm, though she was unable to prevent being temporarily blinded by the bright light. When her vision cleared, she saw the visitor, Moran, limping toward her, clutching his leg. Impressive artifact, he remarked, nodding to her hammer. Suddenly, he dropped to the ground, grimacing in pain. You're hurt, Kotara remarked, rushing over to him, putting his arm over her broad shoulders. He blinked and glanced at her. Wait, he said, eyes glazed from pain. You're a girl. What? Kotara asked, pulling toward a small building where they could take shelter. I've just never seen a woman who had arms like tree trunks. Moran remarked. Face clenched with pain as he kept his hand pressed to his leg. Snorting, Kotara lowered her into a chair, then touched his injured leg. Ah! Moran screamed, his whole body contorting angry agony. She rolled her eyes, then grabbed a rag and stuffed it into his mouth. Shut up, she remarked, examining the wound. As soon as she did, she felt sorry for her lack of sympathy. The bone had been splintered in several places. How he was walking was a mystery to Kotara, but the injury was severe enough that he shouldn't have been on his feet. He pulled out the rag and wiped his mouth on his sleeve. I need to get to Fortuana, he grimaced, massaging his leg. She can heal the leg. How did you break it? One of the enemy source users caused the ground to explode next to me, he remarked. I managed to shield myself, but a stray rock hit my leg and broke it. Must have been moving fast, Kotara remarked, reaching down and picking him up. It was significantly easier than she was anticipating. His body was light. Ugh, he grunted, voice strained with pain. My bones are unusually brittle. Even a middling impact to my arm will shatter it. If I carry you to your friend, can you break a path to her? Kotara ushered her grip on him so he rested more comfortably in her arms. Moran nodded, expression still pained as she walked out of the house. I have some strength left, though. If he trailed off as he glanced upward. Oh no, he whispered, staring at the sky. A tall woman wearing long, fluttering clothing floated down from the sky, short hair rustling in the breeze as she landed on the ground. As she glided forward, Kotara noticed that her feet were bare as she moved gracefully toward them. The unfamiliar woman tilted her head, eyeing the two of them. I had not thought to see you again after our last meeting, deserter. Her voice was soft, complemented by her fluttering clothes. However, I can't say that you are an unwelcome discovery. I'm not frightened of you, Ja'ana, Moran remarked, though his body was tense with fear. Ja'ana's mouth quirked upward, very much like a wolf sensing the fear in a wounded animal. So you claim, she remarked, raising her hand. I'm going to enjoy this. A bolt of lightning shot from her open palm. Instinctively, Kotara raised her hammer in a defensive move. The bolt struck the hammer with a loud crack, then evaporated. It did. Blinking, Ja'ana recovered quickly, then began hurling lightning bolt after lightning bolt at them, as if the defense would dissipate under constant attack. Katara's hammer glowed red in her hands that blocked the attacks. Each one dissipated as soon as it touched it. Seemingly frustrated, the woman began hurling fireballs at them. Those were equally ineffective. Kotara looked down at Moran, then slowly lowered him to the ground. Cover me, she said quietly. Abruptly, she rushed forward, swinging the hammer. Ja'ana smiled, then abruptly yelled in startlement as Kotara swung her weapon at the enemy's hand. Casually, Kotara... Casually, Ja'ana flowed, not moved, flowed out of the way of the attack, then drew a knife and shoved it toward Kotara's face. Flinching back, Kotara braced herself for a blow, only to have the knife strike an invisible barrier. The woman snarled, then spun out of the way of Kotara's return string, then threw a blast of fire at Moran. Kotara managed to get in the way, but she was too slow. As soon as the fireball was about to strike him, Moran twisted his fingers together. The fireball dissipated instantly, and then he began unleashing ribbons of fire and bolts of lightning at Ja'ana. The woman danced out of the way of the strikes, sending her own burst of power at the man lying on the street while avoiding Kotara's hammer strokes dexterously. After a few minutes of continuously seesawing standoff, Ja'ana sent a blast of rolling earth at Kotara. The rock slammed into a large blonde woman, knocking her onto her back. The Sorav smiled and raised her hand, deflecting Moran's attack with an invisible barrier. So your toy has limitations, she remarked. Then the air around her abruptly warped and grew dark. Eyes wide, she raised her hand and pointed to one of the buildings. Let's see what you'll do against this. Kotara stared in horror as the building ripped up from the ground and hurled itself at her. She raised her hammer defensively, but she knew that this would do no good. Just before the building crashed into her, a hole in the air appeared above Kotara, then descended. Kotara dropped through the portal to the ground next to Ja'ana with a crash of metal on stone, causing the woman to turn around instantly, yelling in surprise when the powerfully built woman swung her hammer toward her. The Sora dodged aside, but Kotara's hammer struck. The Exalted screamed in pain as the hammer smashed into her thigh with a sharp crack. Face contorted in pain, Ja'ana fell to the ground, clutching her leg. Moran threw a barrage of fire and lightning at their fallen opponent, but abruptly the woman vanished. Just vanished. Ugh. And groaned, leaning back and holding her his leg. We need to get going, he remarked. She's likely to come back when she's healed, and that trick won't work twice. Think again. The whisper sounded from behind Kotara. She barely had enough time to turn before a contorted lamp shot from the side and clamped onto her hammer. She kept a tight grip on the weapon, but almost as if she was having a tug of war against a giant. The hammer flew out of Katara's hand towards Ja'ana. The woman was limping, but her grip on the hammer was firm. Thank you for this, she remarked, hefting the hammer absently. For this, I'll let you live. Abruptly, she vanished again, taking the hammer with her. Damn it! Kotara slammed her armored fist against the street, adding even more incentives as she pounded her knuckles against the street. Abruptly, the sound of screams throughout the city were cut off, leaving only silence. Bloody hell, Moran remarked, groaning as he looked around. Maybe, abruptly, a hole in the air opened, revealing the short man's tall, dark-skinned companion, cutting him off mid-sentence. She rushed to the portal and took him into her arms. Oh, Moran, she said quietly, strange hair pulled back to expose her partially shaved temples. I'm so sorry I couldn't have gone here sooner. It's fine, Moran remarked. If you would be so kind, my leg is in pretty bad shape. Expression thunderous. Foreshadowing muttered several curses under her breath that were so vile, Kotar had to blink in sheer admiration, if nothing else. Still swearing, she wrapped her arms around him. Then she adopted an expression of extreme focus. Moran's scream of pain caused Kotara to flinch. The sight of his leg popping back into place caused her stomach to churn uncomfortably. He thrashed a bit more, but Fortuana held him tightly, so his thrashing was mitigated as she healed him. Thank you, old friend, he whispered, leaning his head against her shoulder. Come on, there are people in our city that need our help. A few of the Black Hand got away with some captives, Fortuana grimaced. They seem to have been hunting specifically for people who could become source users. So it wasn't just the device they wanted, Moran muttered. They also wanted to see how many people they could snatch. Shadows and char, Kotara whispered. Then she turned on Moran. Why didn't you stop more of them from being taken? Show some respect, girl, Fortuana snapped. Angrily, Kotara drew herself up. How dare she say that? Bloody hypocrite. We need to regroup. Moran stood up, then adjusted his coat. This is going to have dire consequences. The city is going to need our help more than ever now. Well, you'll have me to back you up, Kotara remarked, extending her hand. I'd be dead without you. Eyes glittering, Moran took the hand warmly. Thank you, Captain Kotara Abor, she said, slight embarrassment flickering at the back of her mind. Sorry for not introducing myself sooner. He waved a dismissive hand. Think nothing of it, he said, somewhat magnanimously, but Kotara didn't mind. Come on, let's see what needs to be done. And that's it.
Nice. Very nice.
A girl can't just use a hammer. Hammer go smash.
Yeah.
Hammer go brr.
Yeah.
As dead as last week's trash.
Hold on, I apologize. Haha, thigh go crush.
Yeah.
Easy.
Yeah. I do like how this kind of action scene. I like how this action. So, it's I specifically like how Brian Jakes reads the word crack often. But that was a preview of Tempest of Shadow. It's available on Amazon if you want to purchase it. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on it in the Discord, but I will have to say that we have to end things right here, much as it pains me.
Aww.
This is a tragic moment in the story.
Indeed. But we have to finish up, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.
I swear.
All right.
Have a riot.